both directions around the entire field. You start hearing people come into the stadium. They're taking their seats. And they take their seat. You hear their chit-chat, their talking, their excitement about the game that's going to commence. You start to smell different smells from the convention stand. The food, the hot dogs, stuff you're not quite sure really what it is. They have some sort of label for it. And then you have this some slight smell of body odor. It just happens. And then you decide, all of a sudden, you're hungry. So you go and buy a hot dog and some popcorn to entertain yourself while you watch the game. So you start tasting the food from the convention stand. Again, not sure really what's in it. And then, all of a sudden, the cheerleaders are out there in the field, and then there's a banner across the tunnel, and all of a sudden, football team rushes through it. Hup, 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 hup. Boom! The game starts.
So, how are we going to run our game plan today? First thing we're going to do, we're going to line up in the Alabama formation. We're going to run the ball right down their throats, and the safety's probably going to tackle us, but that's okay because we'll probably get 20 yards. The next play, we're going to run a reverse. Now, they will not see this coming, so when they're bumbling and fumbling around trying to catch us, we're going to gain another 20 yards. Then we're down to their 30. And then we're going to run a slant route, which means we're going to coincide on them. And that is going to get us down to their 10-yard line. In this play, we're going to get them off balance, and we're going to run the play action to the tight end, and the safety is not going to catch us. And then we're going to score. And then instead of going for 1, we're going to go for 2, because we're Georgia Tech, and we can do that!
That's not how you do it, Zach.
Really?
Yeah, you weren't redundant enough, and you didn't keep it simple. I'm sure half the people in here don't know what you said.
Yeah.
We'll show them how it's done.
So this is our game plan, guys. We're going to line up with simple formation. Offense versus defense. Now you know defense has to tackle, right? And the object is to get the ball in the end zone. Yes?
What sport is this?
Football. So,
Soccer?
So, we're going to make sure that we run the ball a little bit and try to keep it balanced with the pass so that we can score points. As long as we score points and we prevent their offense from scoring, we will win.
And this represents redundancy used in the correct form, because redundancy can help your speech whenever you're getting a point across. Your audience doesn't need to be lost. They need to keep on being reminded of the main point and the whole idea of what you're trying to convey. And this also goes along with just keeping it simple. You need to speak on a level to where your audience can understand, and it needs to be easily decoded by them, and they need to be able to understand what you're saying. And redundancy helps reinforce this with keeping it simple, and it shows how you get your points across easily.
The smog is thick. You can barely breathe. When you can see, there's a red flag or banner somewhere in sight. You hear marching military boots sounding all around you. The feeling of oppression weighs heavily on you. You can't bear to distinct it. This is Communist China.
The Communist Party of China was formed in 1921. It was under Mao Zedong's control in 1947. Eventually, Mao led to a revolution. The Communist Party obtained control in 1947. They allowed the example of the Soviet model of development through the heavy industry with surplus extracted from peasants. The most important part was that the consumers were left to the secondary importance in the senior Soviet split in the 1950s. Mao split from the traditional Marxism-Leninism and developed Maoism, the Chinese interpretation of communism. It was really important that Mao was upset with the Soviet leader Khrushchev's position and peaceful coexistence between the communists and capitalists. It was super important that Mao started a strong communist tradition, instituting the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. The Great Leap Forward was instituted to help transform China into a heavy industrialized society. However, this was largely considered to be a failure, which is the most important thing. And many Chinese starved to death. In the Cultural Revolution, Mao overthrew his enemies and millions of people were killed or persecuted. Thank you very much.
May the power of Christ compel you.
most important point overall?
When talking about China, it's important to remember these 3 key points. The first, most important point is its population. China is overpopulated, and so therefore they have to force a limit on their kids that are allowed to be born. It's 2 to 3 each household, and the rest have to go to adoption if you choose to have more. The second most important thing about China is pollution. China's pollution is 60%. It's horrible, and you can't even see the sun rise in Beijing. You have to practically go around with a gas mask if you are not from Beijing yourself. And the third most important point is probably the most compelling one is China's authoritarian government, communism. Communism allows their government to tell you how you're going to live your life and how many kids you can have, and basically they lay out all of the rules for your household, for your people, everything. China's government controls it, and that is why they cannot stop the pollution, because they choose not to. They choose resources over pollution.
Nice red shirt.
And Tcec Dyer controlled this flow of information, and he also emphasized his key points like communism. Non-verbally and verbally, he got louder, and the whole almost breaking his wrist. You know.
The funniest story about this is last year I noticed I was doing a speech on China, and everyone was bored because everyone hated nation presentations. So I noticed like everyone's falling asleep, so I was like, I gotta do something to get my audience back with me. Communism.
He almost broke the podium. Like it.
You don't do that. Don't do that too much, or they're gonna focus on your wrist. But just do it. Just do it enough to catch their audience back. Just see them slacking off on you.
Just yell at the audience first. Hey, listen to me.
Listen to me.
Don't sleep. I am interesting.
Anything else?
Just a quick recap if you want. What Hannah and Miracle did was they set the scene for, that was the workshop. It was setting the scene through sight, taste, like all your 5 senses, trying to have you imagine something. You know, like Hannah said, some of you hopefully were sitting in a stadium. Obviously nobody's going to sit in the same stadium. You know, Ryan's going to think of a different stadium than Caitlin is. But hopefully you're all thinking of a stadium. If I say a desert, everybody thinks of a different one. So you're all going to have a different place, but you're all getting in that mindset, in that zone, and it makes the speeches more memorable, because suddenly you're in a place where that applies.
Here we go. Nicely done!